Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to the Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Today, our guest is Marc. Marc, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, Marc. So, Marc, let us know where you live and what you do.
Oh, the where I live question just changed. So my name is Marc Wandler, CEO of Susgrainable. We turned 3-second pitch. We turned beer waste into a sustainable flour and then added value products. And I'd been doing it out of Vancouver, British Columbia, but just moved operations and myself to Calgary, Alberta.
Awesome. So, Marc, let us know what are your key responsibilities in your business?
Everything. I honestly joke that the CEO of a startup needs to be willing to do everything while acknowledging that they can't do everything. So you have to do anything while knowing you can't do everything. And if there's something you're really bad at, then you start trying to find help for it. So that's kind of how we built the company out. As gaps come up, then it's a conversation of whether it's an advisor or a employee that we need, depending on the amount of time and our resources. But primarily, I'm here to share the story, sell the product, but sell it to every stakeholder. So sell it as an investment, sell it to customers, both B2B and B2C, because we have a fairly complex circular economy business.
Awesome. Makes sense. Completely makes sense. Obviously, whenever you're going to start a business, in case of startups, you have to wear a lot of hats. And most of the time, wear all the hats. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so let us know what was the biggest problem that you have faced in your business?
When the pandemic hit, so I joke around that early days we couldn't make a wrong decision because it was just like the flywheel just started going from day one. We went, our initial thing, this was born out of a UBC MBA project, the business, and I felt it had legs. So I was like, it's food, let's get it in people's mouths. Let's do it at farmers markets. It's super low cost and you can get feedback right away. So we put one milestone, 100 farmers markets in the first summer season. We'll kill ourselves and find out if we actually have something. And by like week 3, we had to hire a baker. I think it was week 6 or 7, we got our first kind of just like, I forget which media channel it was, but it was one media channel. And then the weather person from a national media channel came out to the farmers market and I brought them samples and told us a story. They had us on, and then we were in 7 media outlets real fast. So we couldn't make a wrong decision, but we were pointed at food service. And then when the pandemic hit, literally all of food service shut down. And so the entire food operations, like people were no longer going to restaurants, but they were going to grocery stores. So we couldn't cater to that demand. There's a lot of anxiety around just like in everybody's personal lives. And so then I joked that we couldn't make a right decision for 2 years, but internally we knew it was the right decision, but from the external like advisory investors, they're like, sell, sell, sell. And we're like, it's really expensive to be pivoting every 3 months because buying patterns were pivoting that fast and we're a small startup. So we're like, we know the main part of this business is the flour and we're building out the foundation to be a flour business, even though we have consumer ready products. So yeah, that was a challenge. And now we're kind of back at this really fun inflection point because we positioned ourselves to be like, we're going to grow out of the pandemic when it's time to rebuild. And yeah, now it's managing my time. It's so busy.
Awesome. So, I believe pivot, even the word pivot is something that is scary. In fact, most of the times. So, do you think it is a hard thing to do? Like, even when you are running a business, there are a lot of things in your mind, and sometimes you have plans for the years. So how hard it is pivot from one thing to another? Like, do you think it is hard or not?
I think it's hard for a business to pivot. I don't think it's hard for an individual to pivot. So this is kind of how I use the empowerment value. I will not distract the team on something that I'm like, oh, this could be interesting. Let's try it out. So I always say, like, a lot of people think that's like, oh, I have this new idea. I'm going to keep it a secret. Literally start sharing the idea and try and gauge whether people get excited about it. If they do, it's like, okay, maybe this is worthwhile. Now do a quick analysis on like, how much is this going to actually cost us to do this pivot? And then you start doing the cost benefit analysis of the entire thing, because it's got to be like the market. You want the market demand to kind of create that flywheel, but then you also want to be able to operationally handle it. So yeah, that's the biggest thing I kind of say. It's kind of what, like, if you get to the next stage, leads toward mergers and acquisitions. Like startups, you can pivot faster than a big company, but the bigger your company gets, the harder it will be to pivot. Every time you add team members to your team, you then have to get that alignment to do a pivot if you're pivoting your core operation. Because our core operation, this is where we had like a, not really a consultant, but we got a lot of government money during the pandemic, but it was all for other contractors to help. And so they really positioned us around the baking mixes. And we're like, okay, we were listening because they had industry knowledge that we didn't, and we were first-time founders. But as we were kind of going through it, we're like, this is all about the flour though. And we're like, so we really like about us page on our website is kind of the one we share out most, but the landing page, the home page is all about the baking mixes, because I guess that's what's in product or in market now. But yeah, we're in the middle of a pretty exciting pivot.
All right. So that is interesting, sure, for sure. So let me know from where you are getting more traffic. Are you getting sales more from the internet, or you're getting more sales from the retail side?
Retail. A couple different reasons. One, we have a heavy product, so we get hammered on shipping fees. We're in Canada, and shipping is quite expensive up here. So we have looked at the States. The one thing is we're still capacity constrained, so we're not producing the flour at scale yet. So that's the big inflection point we're at. We're finally at the point where we've kind of proven out the market enough to be like, we have confidence. We're starting to get a few investors to have the confidence to be like, yeah, it's time to do the upcycled barley flour. But we also now, and this one could actually set off, and this one might be shippable because it's lighter, but we've developed the like pretzel cracker. So this is a consumable. It's quicker for people to like try and buy as opposed to a baking mix. They still like, we'll bake it up, they'll try the baking, but then they still have to be like, oh, I still have to commit time to baking this up. So this was an ask from one of the retailers, and it's a bit of a wait and see. I think retail is where it's going to sell well, but we also have a lot of food service options for it too.
All right, makes sense. So what do you think, what is the main advantage of your product? Like how your products set you apart from the market? Because I believe there will be a lot of competitors in the market as well.
Yeah, it's all about framing the competitor. It's like, one, first, who are you replacing on shelf? And is there anybody else doing exactly what you're doing or trying to? So there's a few people in this space. I honestly say that it's not worth looking at a competitor until they've been in business at least a year. What we're doing is not easy. And a lot of people, it's exciting. Everybody's kind of talking about food waste, but the operational side and processing it is actually very difficult. And that's where my co-founder is a farmer. So he's got a lot of resilience, and I've definitely found the right co-founder to start this off with. But yeah, so that's one big thing. Are there a lot of competitors out there? I mean, for food, there's always a lot of competitors. It's like, what do you want to eat? Everybody just eats a certain amount. But there's also a lot of adventurous eaters out there. And so our main value proposition is the combination of sustainability and health, because all the sugars from the barley grain are going into beer. All the fiber and proteins are what's left behind. It's also positioned as a health product. So it's got this, we can either position it depending on which channel and who we're selling it to. We'll either start as being like, this is a healthy product for you for these reasons. And then plus there's this added value benefit that you can feel good because you're fighting food waste. Or there's some people, and this is like corporate and investment partners, that really need to improve their ESG side of things and their environmental goals. And so we'll start with the sustainability side and then be like, hey, this is also really good for health, which is why the end consumer will want it at the end of the day. So yeah, it's a higher fiber. Fiber is the biggest macronutrient. That was actually my background before starting this. I came from healthcare, and the lack of fiber in the North American diet is a $500 billion problem on our healthcare system every year. So we need to get fiber back in our diets.
All right. So when you are letting us know about these benefits, can you be more specific, and you can tell us two major benefits of your product in terms of health?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the fiber, and I'll grab the bag to visualize it if anybody ends up watching it. It's the three call outs we put on. So one, it's the amount of rescued grains. That's the real differentiator on packaging. Nobody's kind of doing that. And then there's the amount of fiber and the amount of protein in it. So those are kind of proteins that really is the now health thing that everybody's about. Everybody's about, I need more protein, I need more protein. Fiber is kind of the next trend that's taking off. So we get to leverage both with our product, and then every product that kind of gets created with it. I'm excited about the pretzel cracker because it's like you can get that. That's something that you can actually get back and partner up with the breweries on. And so you can get it back and get it tasted and start the flywheel and the conversation about what's happening at the brewery in the brewery and make your customer a values aligned stakeholder in the whole process.
Makes sense. So what are your marketing strategies? Like how you are marketing your product? You're marketing your product on internet or maybe social media, or you are just relying on the offline marketing?
Most of it's organic right now. So we do a little bit of social media. We're trying stuff, a lot of collaborative stuff. So low touch point, low effort because we're capacity constrained. So we blow out our capacity. We've blown it out twice. The latest time was when we went on Dragon's Den Canada, pitched, and product took off. But also retailers were like, oh, this is exciting. And they heard about it. So because we know it sells better at retail, demos is one of the big things. And it's a two-sided process with demos for us. We're not only just looking to sell, but we're looking to listen into what products people want to see created out of this. A lot of the feedback we get from the baking mixes is like, can I buy it already baked? So we can kind of take that back to the retailers and be like, hey, who's your bakery operation? Can we find a way to collaborate and just have that discussion going for when we launch the flour at scale so that then people can buy what they want, where they want, and all of it is just incorporating the flour back into the system and making for a greener food system.
Awesome. So when you pivoted your way of selling, if like we talk about the sales side, so have you ever felt that, okay, my current sale process is not good, so I should change it to like XYZ. So have you ever faced any time when you had to take this decision?
I mean, yeah, every time you're positioning to a different customer type, you're going to have to change your value. I'd say like the biggest piece of advice I would give to a lot of the younger entrepreneurs who are building something exciting is slow down your sales process. A lot of people share everything in that first meeting instead of just like teasing out the value proposition or teasing out one asset. If you save and if you have like three exciting things to say, I'd say if like, let's take email, for example, if that's how you're going to go about reaching out, share one exciting thing, then a week or two later, share another exciting thing, and then share third and make your ask just slightly different every time. And I always say, like, don't go beyond three because then you're really forcing it. If they're not interested by the third time, it's either a timing thing, like that's not the right time, or they're not the right fit. And then circle back maybe 6 months later if they are somebody you really want when you have new exciting things on the go. But that's the biggest thing. Like in the earliest days, I would do it. I would share everything at once and it wouldn't give me a reason to follow up as opposed to I have this one thing, I send it, and then I'm like, hey, there's this new exciting thing. Even though it's like they're already there, you've just created a reason to reach out 3 times.
Hey y'all, it's Dan Melnick, the CEO of Zing, and I wanted to share a special offer for all of our listeners. Right now, if you need software development services, we'll give you 2 weeks of a free trial. Do you need to update your website? Do you want to build a mobile app? Do you want to update something that you've been working on for a long time? We've worked in a high-level technologies like AI, machine learning, blockchain. So shoot me a text, 817-874-2208. Thank you.
That's really exciting. In fact, this is not just an advice. This is a hack as well. This is a big trick that you are sharing. Awesome.
It's a huge trick. It took me like probably 3 years to be like, this is what I need to do. But that was during the pandemic. Like you had to do everything virtually. As opposed to in person, I'll share a lot in person. But then even in my follow-ups, I'll take that approach. One thing, another reason to reach out, another reason to reach out. And saying in that third time, hey, I'm not going to bother you for 6 months. Ball's in your court. Here's my LinkedIn. Like follow what I'm doing. Maybe they'll follow you there to keep updated. Maybe it's like we now have an investor page on our website because investors are probably the people I have to cold outreach to the most. But I'm like, here's an investor page, quarterly newsletter. Feel free to follow along. I'm not going to bother you anymore.
You should give some consultation as well, I believe. These things.
Oh, I have an approach, but then my investors will literally hammer me for not being focused. I get that too. But that'll be the 10 years from now when I get my exit. I think advisory and mentorship needs a whole workover as well. So
True. So what are your short-term goals like in next 3 to 6 months?
So the most exciting thing is that pretzel cracker. So now that we literally got the opportunity, it was a move to Alberta. It was produced out of the Duke Food Innovation Center. So it's kind of this food innovation center that the government has to take a lot of the technical responsibilities for companies that are like setting up into high growth and need to keep developing things but don't have the full-on budget to do all the R&D and stuff themselves. So it basically like cuts the costs in half, and you get qualified people, so you don't have to waste your time going to find qualified people. They have all the resources there. But now we basically went with the first iteration of the product and sampled it to like industry partners. It was put on by Export and Trade Commission. So there's buyers from international, and everybody got excited about it. We got like no negative feedback on the product, which is rare. And just the way we did it, we actually had a lot of people being like, I want to buy it. And I'm like, you can't. Like, it literally came out of the lab, the research. We had 300 crackers made up because people were like, I want to take a package home with me. And I was like, you can't. I have a cracker to give you. And it's like, I'll talk to you in a year. We're going to try and get it up and running in 6 months. But yeah, this is where it's like we could provide it food service ready probably within 3 to 6 months. And then packaging and making sure you don't make any mistakes on your packaging is a whole beast in of itself. That's a whole podcast of what creating a physical product in the food space could look like. But that's what I'm most excited about. But also that's more the team that's going to handle that. I'm going to be going and fundraising. So I'm going to be using that pretzel cracker, giving one pretzel cracker to investors and them being like, can I get a bag? And no. Invest and then you can get a bag.
Awesome. So by the way, when you already have very good feedback, then do you share this feedback on your social media or on your website?
Sometimes. We're a small team. So it's also about timing. Like if I get everybody too excited and then they have to wait, then it's like you bring it up later. So it's a timing thing. I say business is a lot about timing, and we've learned a lot and how to tease out stuff, when to tease it out. The biggest thing with the pretzel cracker we did to make it very consumer engaging and friendly, and people really to like hone in on at least one critical question. I find people in like feedback try to get like your customer to answer a million things. It's like, what do you most want them to do? So we asked, what do they love about it? What do they not like about it? And they couldn't really pick something they didn't like about it. And then the last thing was which flavors. Like if we were to develop, and this was the critical thinking one, to see how engaged they were, because some people would be like, I don't know, like whatever. And some people, but the majority of people were like, this is the one flavor I would like. And then we'd get additional questions. So they'd be like, well, do you want chip flavors or do you want cracker flavors? And we'd be like, well, which do you think is a better fit? And so you actually have that conversation, and it's like, this is where in the early days, we would answer that question as opposed to answering with a question. So when you're in this like development phase, I say, try and be the one asking questions as much as possible. I literally did a podcast the other day. It was specific to the beer industry. And so and it was in person. So I got him to try the pretzel cracker. And then we flipped the script and I was asking him questions for 10 minutes. And I even then said, I was like, I'm totally taking over your podcast. And he's like, yeah, that doesn't happen very often. You shouldn't be doing that, like jokingly, but it was fun.
Awesome. So, all right, we have discussed the short-term goals. Now, can you let me know, where do you see yourself and your company after 5 years in the terms of long-term goals?
Yeah, so the vision of the company is it's a micro facility model. So we know this byproduct is available across North America, really across the world, but we don't know the market outside of North America very well. So we're going to focus on North America. Our goal will be 5 facilities, a few in Canada and then a few in the States. So making sure we're getting into that export market. And then really it's for us, everybody kind of starts with financial goals, and our goal is actually impact goals. But for every amount of grain we upcycled, then we're driving revenue and profit. Or revenue for the first 2 years, and then we start getting the profit margin after that. So that's basically the goal. We get to focus on the impact, which is super exciting. And what's starting to get investors like, oh yeah, if you do focus on just scaling up the flour, making it cheaper to produce. So Clinton's working on like that IP side and like honing around that and getting that process as efficient as possible. But the most exciting thing we have over the next little bit is we're seeing the rise in ingredient prices across the board and food becoming more expensive, but we're going to be an input that we're making it cheaper and cheaper. So as everybody else is raising their prices, our goal is to bring down our prices on the products in market and then launch future products at price competitive. So yeah, it's going to be a really challenging first 2 years. But once we get that first facility, then it's just about popping more of them and replicating it in different markets. And then it's picking which one's exciting. And I'll get to travel a bunch, which will take me back to the days where I worked for an airline. I love traveling, so I'm game for it.
Awesome. This is going to be fun. In fact, crazy fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That the hard work is finally like the 5 years of grinding it out, literally grinding, are paying off. And it's like, it's fun because I get to do, as you grow and as you grow a team, you get to do more and more and hone in on what you're best at. And then you have team members to complement. But that's where I think a lot of people also go wrong is they hire people like themselves because they like and get along with them. And then you have everybody who wants to do the same thing. So I typically hire a bunch of people. I do hire one or two who do the things I love, just because as you grow, and especially as you're growing in different markets, you're also going to get potentially 2 events that you want to do both. And then you're like, okay, I need my second person to go to that event. So you do want some, but you don't want your entire team to be just like you.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Mark, I really enjoyed the conversation and thanks for joining us today. Finally, would you please let our audience know how they can reach you? If you can share the URL of your website and your social media handles or wherever you want the people to reach you.
Yeah. So really unique name, Susgrainable. I mean, I got a t-shirt on right here. People joke around that I'm always branded in it. So Susgrainable. It's basically like the word sustainable, but replace the T with GR. We basically own every handle because it's a unique name. So that's been a huge benefit to have. If they want to reach out to me personally, I will say I'm very busy and I'm pretty good at not getting too distracted right now with all the priorities. But feel free to follow along. LinkedIn is where I'm most active. I got a few fun Susgrainable accounts. You can usually find me through the Susgrainable and then go look for my individual ones. But you'll find some of my teammates doing some interesting stuff on the different channels as well. But go to the website and you can reach out to the Hello account if you're really trying to get a specific way to reach me. LinkedIn is where I'm most active personally.
Awesome, Mark. So nice of you. Thank you for joining us today. And I hope we will see each other again.
Yeah, absolutely. Best of luck with everything you're up to as well. That's it.
Thank you, Mark. Best of luck. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.